This is a $4,000 payment that I received on the 3rd of May. I hope you can tell. If you're wondering why there's no light, it's because this is bedtime for me. I was supposed to be going to bed, but instead I stayed up watching Shrek. And I know it's stupid, but hey, I can do whatever I want, anytime I want. It doesn't matter if I sleep late, doesn't matter if I wake up late. I can do anything whenever I want, however I want. But it wasn't always like this. I used to be so broke that the only thing that kept me up through the night is just thinking about money. But now I don't think about money. I just make money. And I'm so blessed to be at a point in life where I can go to bed whenever I want, knowing that the next day I'm gonna wake up and still make some money, regardless of how how much I make. Even if I just make like $500 to $600 on like a small thing that I sold, I'm still making money. But it wasn't always like this. I remember when I was a kid, I used to go up to my mother and I would tell her, I want to try basketball. I want to try football. Well, if you're an American who's watching, there's then soccer. I want to try tennis. There were so many sports that I wanted to try. At some point, I remember I was watching Karate Kid, and I was like, Mom, I want to try karate. I want to do karate. And she was like, well, you can't because we don't have the money to do it. And when I was a young kid, I remember there was a certain period of my life where I had to live with my grandma, like me and my mother, because we didn't have money for us to be in a home. And during that time, I didn't know how bad things were within my family. During that time, I never understood that we've actually screwed ourselves so bad. Well, it wasn't my mother's fault. It was mainly my father's fault. And I'm gonna get into more detail on what exactly happened. He moved to Dubai in like 2007, and he's lived there since. My father has never been really a part of my life. It was more of like a transactional thing where it's like, oh, we check up on my father maybe once a week, just to make sure he sends us just a little bit of money. We need food. We need to do something. He can't just like not do anything. But we'd always just like call up to make sure that he at least gives us some money, which by the way was a hassle in itself when we lived apart. Like he never used to send us money. He never really helped us out in any way. He would actually have my grandfather, his father, give us money so we're able to live. But then we moved to Dubai in the future, and you would think that things would start to go well. It turns out things were not well at all. Although I did go to private school, but my father was the type of guy who would always delay payments. When it's like, okay, rent is due, but you keep telling your landlord that you're gonna pay next week, and then next week comes by, and then next week you're gonna pay, and then next week comes by, and then the next week you're gonna pay eventually. And then eventually, of course, it gets to a point where my father pays, but then he takes a long time until he gets things done. Why? Because he never prepared us financially. But then in 2019, something happened. My mother decided to move back to our home country, and I decided to be like, you know what, I'm gonna stick back in Dubai and see how things go. Hopefully, things are not as bad, and hopefully things start to get a little bit better. And I remember we dropped off my mother and my brother at the airport, and the first thing my father says to me, he goes, if you think things will get any easier, you're wrong. And I didn't understand what he meant by that until like in the day I decided to be like, you know what, I'm hungry, can we go get some food? And then I was like, could we go get some Burger King? And he goes and he's like, well, I cannot do that. I was like, what the heck? No. He's like, I don't have cash. I was like, are you kidding me? Even we cannot afford Burger King. We live in Dubai. How could we live if we don't have money? How does that even make sense? Turns out we were like a few months behind on payments in terms of rent and whatnot. And then for my school, turns out that my grandparents started to make all the payments so then I could stay in school. And I'm like, dude, so you go to work, because I see him going to work every day, but we still don't have money. How does that make sense? But then things started to get a little bit better in 2020, which of course is a weird time because COVID happened. But when COVID happened, my father saw an opportunity that not a lot of people were noticing. That was the time when my father started to get motion. Okay, he started to make good money. And even if a friend of mine is watching this, he could tell you that my father in 2020, he started to go up the ladder while everybody was just tanking down. Like all businesses were shutting down, people were flooding the country, everybody was running away. But my father saw a thing where it made him so much money. He literally started partnerships in China, in the United States, in the UK and Canada, and even he did partnerships in Saudi Arabia as well. But it's like this was the time when things were really doing going well for us. We had money to do whatever we want. My father, I remember when he started to make a lot of money, he went and bought 2 cars the same day. And by the way, if a friend of mine is watching this, he could tell you in the comments. And in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm set for life. things are going good. I don't have to worry about money ever. 2020 goes by just fine. Late 2020, my father flew his parents out to come and stay with us. Great times. We did shoppings. We went around. I'm living like a king. I used to even do story giveaways on my Snapchat story. 2021 comes by. I'm still living in Dubai. Things are fine. We bring my brother to come and visit us. Stay with us for a little bit. Everything is still fine. My father still has money. Then mid 2021, something happens that we didn't plan for. I go back to our home country with my brother for like a small vacation. I'm coming back to Dubai, so I'm just going on a small vacation and whatnot. And it turns out that during that time, I spent around 3 months in my home country as like a vacation, thinking everything would be fine. A couple months are gonna go, but those 3 months are gonna go by, and then I'm gonna go back to Dubai. But I didn't know that during those 3 months, things started to go downhill, and my father never informed us. I go back, and I didn't even know that the way I was able to come back is my father sold a car for him to afford me coming back. I didn't know that. I didn't know any of this. I was blind, thinking everything is still okay. We're doing well. In the future, eventually I'm going to be a trust fund kid where I don't have to worry about money, and I just spend daddy's money. Now comes 2022, and that's when things started to go downhill. I wake up one morning, I see my father's friend present at my apartment, and he straight up goes and tells me, "You gotta go." I was like, "What do you mean I gotta go?" He's like, "You gotta go out of the country." Next thing I know, a week later, suitcase is packed and $100 that I got from selling my TV, and I'm back with my mother and brother. Imagine going from nothing to a little bit of something to eventually something, thinking that you're gonna just keep going from there to tanking. Now, when I moved back with my mother and brother in 2022, I had to figure things out. I got no money. I've got no future. Things did not go the way I wanted it to go. I was somebody who took things for granted. I thought I was on top of the world and my life was just gonna get a little more and more better. But it never really went the way I wanted it to go. And now I cannot just live with the hopes that eventually things will be all figured out. Every time my father made a promise, I knew he wasn't gonna keep that promise because I knew him from when I was a kid, okay? This guy cannot be trusted. I never trusted that guy, okay? Me and him were never close. We didn't really have a good relationship. Every time he made a promise about something, I knew it was a lie. So when I moved back in with my mother and brother, and I would hear promises of like things are gonna get better, I knew things were not gonna get any better. In fact, I knew things were gonna get worse and worse from there. So I had to take the matter into my own hands, and I decided to get a job. I get a job and I work on that job for a few months. I make absolutely nothing from that job, so I leave the job. Okay, I was like, you know what, I have nothing but free time, may as well start an online business. So in 2022 I decided to start an online business, which was an agency. Now, given my circumstances, I had no laptop. I had a very bad Wi-Fi connection, so I had to use my mother's laptop, which she had since 2016. Could you imagine? Okay. And my Wi-Fi was bad because we didn't have the money to upgrade speed. So I was cooked. I was finished. I didn't know what to do. So I started to build my online business, which was a marketing agency. And I'm working day in and day out. I gotta figure things out. I'm motivated. Okay, I cannot just see my life tank and do nothing about it. I have to do something about it. If you see your life tanking, you have to do something about it, whether you like it or not. And I was like, listen, dude, I used to live in Dubai and I lived a very good life. I want to get to that point and even better. Okay, I want to live a life where I never have to worry about money. I can do things whenever I want, however I want. So I'm working on my agency, and for 6 months straight, I see no results. And it was mainly because I was making bad decisions. I was switching from one niche to another. I was switching from one service to another, and I was overcomplicating things for myself. But then when I stuck to one plan, one strategy, one offer, one service that I'm gonna offer, on the 7th month, I saw my first ever client for 5 bands, $5,000 and a $3,000 a month retainer. That client stuck around for 3 months, of course minus the first month that he came on board, and things were going well. I thought I was on top of the moon. The next thing you know, I'm making more bad decisions. I lived my life with this fear of just losing money, so I had to take that money and try to do something about it so then I could never lose that money. Okay, so I started to make some bad decisions. I decided, since I have good money saved up now, I have over $10,000 saved up, may as well start investing. So I put my money in crypto and I lost it all. I lost most of the money. I went from $10,000 plus in my bank account to 3 bands left in my account. And by the way, you cannot do things with 3K. You cannot do anything with 3K. What can you do with 3K? You can absolutely do nothing with 3K. But then I also lost another 1,000, so I was stuck with $2,000, which I absolutely cannot do anything with. But then I was like, listen, if I can do it once, best believe I can do it twice. So I started another business, and that business revolved around my own struggle. During my time living with my father, I experienced such big amounts of anxiety that it was unbelievable. I remember there were times with my stepmother, because I have a stepmother, if you didn't know, she would knock on my door and she would walk in. She would see me banging my head on the wall, I'm punching walls, and I was a crazy kid. And it was mainly because of my father. But then it got to a point where I decided to do inner work and work on myself. And that's when I started to feel better mentally. So I was like, what if I could go out and help others do the same? And that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I figured out something that many people struggle with, so why not package that up, sell it to other people, so then they could also benefit from what I achieved. And it worked. I made a video on YouTube called My Step-by-Step Plan to Make Money Online to Survive, and I laid out each and every single thing. If you scroll down, you'll find that video. 30 days after making that video, I made my first ever $10,000 in a single month. Why? It's because I sold something that's authentic to me, something that I know how to deliver on, and something that I know a lot of people benefit from because it helped my life a lot. And that's when my shift happened. That's when my mindset shift happened when it comes to making money. That if you're broke, it's not your fault, but if you don't do anything about it, it's your fault. What happened with my father and my family and us struggling all our lives and never really making any good decisions with money and never really planning out things financially correctly wasn't my fault. It was my father's fault. But now that my father's out of the picture, anything that happened from this moment forward, it is my fault. And I've realized that if I wanted to make money, all I need to do is just sell a service. Sell a service that's packaged in knowledge that I acquired from personal experience, and I could charge as much as I want. First ever client came on board for $3,000. From then on now, I literally just kept raising my prices. Now, all it takes me is just one client a week, and I'm good. I never worry about money. In fact, I send my father money. There are many things which I cannot get into, but whenever he asks for money, I'm like, I got you. Sure, we're not that close, but you're still my father, so I gotta take care of you. I send him money. And by the way, if you have any personal stories, things that happen in your life, please share them. I want to know more about you. I want to know what you've tried, what you failed at. I want to know your personal life. Well, not in depth, keep your secrets to yourself, but I want to know your struggles. Tell me in the comments. But just to sum it up, I want you to know that if you're broke, that's fine. But if you don't do something about it, then that's not fine. What you should be doing, sell a service ideally that's around your own personal experience and package it up into a one-on-one program and just sell it to people. If you have money, run ads. If you don't have money, do content. And I've literally helped many people do what I do. I've helped many people grow their own knowledge-based businesses. I've helped many people sell advice. You can check the link down below. You will see many results. The impact I've had on my life has echoed onto other people's lives. Not just my family, but people who truly think that they could turn their struggles into a positive thing. You don't have to suffer all your life. All you need is just one plan and cut out all distractions. And soon enough, you'll get to a point in life where your financial struggles are just something you look back at and make a video about.